The first scream cut through the sovereign's palace like a bad punchline delivered at a funeral. Awkward, shrill, and ending in blood. One moment, the chamber glittered with alien nobility, their jeweled limbs raised in toast. The next, a dignitary sprawled on the glassy floor, his throat blooming red around a knife that seemed to materialize from the air. The music stuttered to silence. Even the sovereign's throne of living crystal hummed uneasily, as though the empire itself recoiled. From the mirrored walls emerged 12 figures, clad in black silk armor that swallowed light, masks carved like frozen screams, blades gleaming like promises no one wanted kept. The obsidian blades. Entire star systems had fallen in whispers at the mention of their name. Where they walked, peace treaties dissolved, rebellions died, and rulers never saw dawn again. Tonight, they moved as shadows, and the empire's pulse quickened with fear. But their arrival was not for terror alone. It was for theater. The sovereign himself smiled, as though murder was but another wine to be savored at his banquet. The guests trembled. None dared breathe. The empire thrived on spectacle, and this was a performance written in blood. Far away, light years and worlds apart, terror panicked. The unified council of Earth sat in a chamber built of ambition and bad coffee. The room was loud. Overlapping arguments, clenched fists, the hum of failing climate controls. Diplomatic envoys had died on 3 colonies in the last month, throats slit in patterns too precise to be coincidence. Alien media howled that humanity was behind the killings. Fleets were scattered, governments strained, alliances unraveling like cheap cloth. We cannot fight them. One counselor barked, face flushed. Our navy is an ornament, not a weapon. We can appeal to the Galactic Tribunal, another argued weakly. Present evidence, demand arbitration. Evidence, sneered a third. The evidence points to us. We're being framed, and by the time we untangle it, Earth will already be ash. The arguments spiraled until one voice, low and worn, cut through. Counselor Mirasale leaned forward, eyes sunken from sleepless nights. She spoke softly, and that was why they all went silent. We send him. The words were heavy, and for a moment no one understood. Then recognition dawned. Faces blanched, chairs scraped, as several counselors stood in outrage. No, absolutely not. That thing is not even a citizen. He's a weapon, not a man. Mira did not flinch. He is what remains when all else has failed. Do you want Terra skies burned? Our cities leveled? Then send him. The chamber quieted, unease settling like a shroud. They knew of him. Everyone did, though no one spoke the name aloud. A figure out of rumor and exile. The Phantom of Edo. A man who carried silence like a cloak, trained in arts humanity had forgotten, but never truly lost. He had no past, no family, no nation. Only discipline honed through centuries of secret tradition. They had sworn never to call him. But desperation has no dignity. And so he left Terra aboard a smuggler's freighter bound for the stars. He traveled not in luxury, but among crates of counterfeit music discs labeled Best of Britney Spears, Galactic Edition, wedged between barrels of recycled nutrient paste. The smugglers whispered about him. One dared to ask, is he truly human? Another answered, worse. He's too human. He rarely spoke. When he did, the words cut sharper than steel. On the first night of the voyage, he said only this, I will end them before they end us. The obsidian blades spread across the galaxy, leaving corpses and panic in their wake. Yet soon, whispers spread of something stranger, killers disappearing, missions collapsing. A blade found drifting in zero gravity, body pierced by wounds too precise to trace. A communications hub sabotaged by tools no scanner could identify, later found wrapped in something primitive called duct tape. Soldiers swore they saw no intruder, only shadows that flickered and vanished. One intercepted alien report read. He referenced something called Chuck Norris and winked. We do not know who this entity is, but we are afraid. Their leader, Cale Vare, was not a man who feared. Taller than most soldiers, carved of scars and fury, Cale had commanded assassins across a dozen systems. Yet as his blades began to fall, unease coiled within him. This enemy was not loud, not proud, not glorious in combat. He was a ghost, and ghosts cannot be hunted. The phantom left calling cards not of words, but of symbols. A single crimson petal inked on his steel or stone, a mark from Edo's long-dead gardens. It was insult and challenge both. But in the shadows, the phantom uncovered more than blood. The blades were pawns. The sovereign himself orchestrated the chaos, his plan vast and cold. Frame humanity for the assassinations, then unleash a doomsday construct hidden in orbit. The Solar Scourge, a machine designed to reduce Terra to flame and silence. The revelation came at a ruined station, drifting on the edge of forgotten trade routes. The phantom cornered Kale there, in a hall of broken glass and flickering lights. Their duel was swift, blades whispering through air like arguments made in steel. Kale's strikes were fury, the phantom's silence. Yet when Kale lay bleeding, he laughed, bitter and sharp. "You think yourself free," he spat. "But we are both pawns. The sovereign uses us as he uses all. You kill us, Terra burns anyway. You kill me, the scourge fires, and your people choke on ash. Join me, ghost, or we both die as shadows in his game." The phantom's blade hovered at Kale's throat. He could end it. One motion, and another killer would drift into the silence of history. Yet something in Kale's words clung like smoke. Pride? Desperation? Truth? The blade lowered. Not in mercy, never mercy, but in recognition. For in Kale's rage, he saw not merely an enemy, but another prisoner of the throne. And so an impossible alliance flickered into being. The phantom of Edo and Kale Vare, bound by nothing but necessity, turned their eyes toward the sovereign's heart. Somewhere in the distance, the solar scourge stirred. And you, dear listener, yes, you who walk in a world where shadows seem harmless, remember this: the greatest dangers do not roar, they whisper. Humanity survives not by strength, not by wisdom, but by sending one stubborn soul into the dark and daring him to return with fire. He once told a smuggler that silence was his greatest weapon, then proved it by dismantling an entire assassin squad while eating instant ramen with chopsticks made from their own daggers. The smuggler never laughed again. The Phantom of Edo walked now not as myth, but as necessity, partnered with Kale Vare, the scarred commander of the Obsidian Blades who once swore to kill him. The galaxy would call it madness. Perhaps it was. Yet madness often births survival. They traveled aboard a freighter patched together with rust, duct tape, and questionable optimism. The smugglers had fled after one look at Kale's burning eyes and the phantom silence, leaving their ship as tribute. Its corridors smelled of oil and instant noodles. Cats. Yes, someone had inexplicably smuggled 3 cats into deep space, roamed freely, batting grenades from shelves and curling in cockpits as if they owned the vessel. Kale found this horrifying. The Phantom found it amusing. "Why do they stare at me?" Kale muttered once, brushing a calico off the controls. "They are deciding," the Phantom said evenly. "Deciding what? If you were prey." Kale did not laugh. The Sovereign's plan unfurled before them like a storm on the horizon. The Solar Scourge, a construct vast as a continent, hidden in the reaches of Imperial space. If activated, its fire would sear Earth into cinders. And the Sovereign, ever theatrical, would frame humanity as the villain of their own extinction. To stop him, they had to reach the heart of the Imperial pinnacle, the fortress palace at the Empire's core. Obstacles were endless. Patrols scoured trade routes, scanners sought them, and whispers of rebellion flared and died in the dark. On one world, they found smugglers stringing banners that read humanity did IT above burn embassies. On another, a tavern full of aliens demanded to know if Earth's Florida man was a prototype weapon. Kale sneered at such idiocy. The Phantom simply let them believe. Sometimes fear was more efficient than truth. They landed first on Vera Station, a marketplace built of spiraling towers and neon haze. Smugglers, rebels, mercenaries, all bartered secrets like coins. Kale stormed through its alleys, his blade ready, drawing too many eyes. The phantom moved unseen, slipping into shadows, dismantling watchers with quiet efficiency. It was here they encountered their first true test. An ambush. The Sovereign had anticipated doubt within the blades. Half a dozen assassins loyal to him cornered the pair in a narrow corridor lit by crimson lanterns. Kale roared, his sword cutting arcs of fury, while the phantom danced in silence, blades flashing once, twice, bodies collapsing before screams could form. Yet this was not victory without cost. Kale faltered, wounded across the ribs, his pride bleeding as heavily as his flesh. The assassin's last words chilled them both. The Sovereign knows you walk together. He waits, and when the scourge burns, your corpses will be ash in its first flame. Kale spat blood and swore vengeance. The phantom only listened, gaze unreadable. They fled Vera Station as alarm screamed. Word spread quickly. The obsidian blades were fracturing. Their leader turned traitor, a ghost of Earth at his side. Across the Empire, rebellion stirred. Civilians hurled stones at soldiers. Smugglers lit fires in markets. Children painted petals of crimson on walls. A story had begun, and once born, stories are hard to kill. Days later, the freighter drifted within sight of the Imperial pinnacle. It rose into the clouds like a spear of black diamond, spires coiled with light, every wall alive with surveillance. Ships swarmed its perimeter, squadrons drilling in precision. At its heart pulsed the Scourge's control core, the trigger of Terra's doom. Kale leaned on the freighter's rail, eyes narrowed. Once we enter, there is no retreat. The phantom adjusted his mask. Retreat was never offered. Their infiltration began at dusk, though dusk was artificial here. Light dimmed by decree, shadows engineered for aesthetic. The phantom moved through them as if born of them. Kale followed, his presence less subtle but no less lethal. Guards fell silently, cameras blinked to static, doors yielded to wires and whispers. Deeper they crept, tension thickening like the charge before lightning. Kale muttered under his breath of the Sovereign's arrogance, a betrayal, a vengeance sowed. The phantom said nothing. His silence unnerved Kale more than any speech could. At last they reached the heart, the chamber of the Solar Scourge's core. It throbbed with light, alien glyphs cascading across its surface, energy humming like a heartbeat preparing for violence. Terra hung at the edge of this machine's promise, a world waiting to burn. But the Sovereign was waiting too. His voice rang through the chamber, smooth and cruel, his form projected in radiant shimmer. You arrive as I knew you would, pawn and ghost, chained together by desperation. Did you believe yourselves clever? Did you think rebellion could wound eternity? You will fail, and your failure will be legend. Kale lunged, fury burning through pain, his blade clashing with guards the Sovereign had stationed. The phantom slipped past the fray, weaving into the control core, hands moving with precise certainty. Every glyph was alien, every system foreign, yet discipline is a language all its own. He dismantled power with the patience of a monk and the ruthlessness of a blade. The Scourge began to awaken, engines groaning like a beast roused from slumber. Warnings flashed across the chamber. Terra skies trembled on the edge of annihilation. Kale fought savagely, body failing but rage sustaining. The Sovereign's laughter echoed, and then, from his pouch, the phantom drew something absurd. Not a weapon, not a relic, a roll of duct tape. He tore strips, binding circuits, shorting conduits, silencing alarms with stubborn simplicity. The Scourge faltered, choked, and died with a whimper, its vast fire undone not by genius or power, but by humanity's eternal faith in improvised solutions. The humans, the Sovereign hissed, are insects, and yet his form shimmered, fractured, a projection only. He was never here. His laughter lingered, mocking, promising return. Then the image dissolved, leaving silence and smoke. The pinnacle trembled. Fires broke across its spires. Alarms shrieked as rebellions surged from the streets below, smugglers and civilians rising in chaos. Kale collapsed to one knee, bleeding but alive, his eyes burning with hatred and something darker: respect. The Phantom stood over the ruined core, mask reflecting flames. They had won, and yet the Sovereign lived. The pinnacle burned, a jewel of the Empire crumbling. Whispers spread faster than flame. The Sovereign was vulnerable. The Empire could bleed. Humanity was not prey, but predator cloaked in shadow. Across 1,000 worlds, rebellion stirred awake. Kale rasped, voice hoarse, "This is not the end." The Phantom gave no answer. His silence was enough. And you, reader, hear this lesson in the smoke. Empires fall not only to armies, but to single souls who refuse inevitability. Power is brittle. Fear is fragile. Even in the vastness of stars, one ghost with duct tape and resolve can change the fate of worlds. They say legends end with applause, but this one ended with smoke, blood, and a cat clawing at the controls of a dying empire's jewel. The imperial pinnacle burned. Towers once polished to mirror perfection cracked and sagged, spilling fire into the night skies of the capital. From its spires poured soldiers, civilians, and rebels alike, the careful order of empire dissolving into chaos. Markets outside erupted with riots, smugglers selling weapons at triple price, children painting crimson petals on walls as though it were a holy sign. The Sovereign's voice, once infinite in its authority, now existed only in whispers of projection and cowardly escape. The Phantom of Edo stood upon a fractured balcony, his mask reflecting the inferno. Beside him, Calvaire leaned heavily on his blade, blood dripping from wounds he refused to acknowledge. Pride burned within Kale's eyes, but so did loss. His assassins, his blades, his purpose, all shattered by betrayal. Together, they watched the Empire crack like porcelain dropped on stone. "This is your doing," Kale muttered, voice hoarse. "No," the Phantom answered softly. "This is theirs." Below, civilians roared. Rebellion had found breath. Humanity had not struck alone. Its shadow had simply shown others the cracks in the throne. Yet triumph was not victory. The Sovereign lived, fleeing into hidden strongholds, carrying vengeance like a seed. The solar scourge was gone, but its blueprint remained. And Kale, scarred and weary, still hungered for reckoning. Their escape from the pinnacle was neither glorious nor subtle. Fires collapsed corridors, soldiers hunted them, and Kale's strength faltered. The Phantom carried him through smoke and ruin, each step echoing like the heartbeat of fate. In the hangar, they found a vessel half-shattered by the rebellion's blast. It flew because the Phantom willed it to fly, patching holes with wires, sealing vents with duct tape, and coaxing engines awake with the stubbornness of a species that refused to die quietly. They rose into the night, fire trailing beneath them, and the capital shrank below. In orbit, silence. The stars watched without judgment. Kale sat slumped in the co-pilot's chair, hand pressed against his ribs, eyes fixed on nothing. "You destroyed the Scourge," he rasped. "You saved Terra, yet the Sovereign lives." The Phantom did not answer. His silence was not emptiness, but decision. He understood something Kale did not. To kill an emperor is simple. To kill an empire requires patience. Days passed. They drifted through broken trade routes and whispered systems. Rumors spread faster than their ship. Merchants spoke of the Phantom of Edo, the ghost who defied the Sovereign. Refugees whispered that Calvaire, once terror incarnate, now fought against his own master. Rebellion gained teeth, not from armies, but from belief. And belief is the sharpest blade of all. Yet belief cannot heal wounds. Kale's body deteriorated, fever seeping into bone. The Phantom tended him with quiet efficiency, but medicine was scarce. Once, Kale opened his eyes and said, almost mockingly, "Will you bury me on Terra, ghost?" "No," the Phantom replied. "Why not?" "Because you will not die here." Kale laughed until the laugh turned to coughing. Still, he did not die. Their paths diverged at a ruined station orbiting a nameless moon. There, remnants of the obsidian blades awaited, some loyal, some wavering, some broken beyond repair. Blood was inevitable. Kale stood before them, ragged but unyielding, declaring the sovereign had betrayed them all. Swords clashed, shadows fought shadows, and the phantom cut through assassins with the grace of inevitability. In the end, only a handful survived. Some fled, unwilling to bow to Kale's fractured authority. Others bent the knee, choosing rebellion over extinction. Kale himself, battered and exhausted, turned to the phantom. One day, Ghost, I will repay this debt. But know this, I will never forgive you. The phantom inclined his head, neither agreeing nor denying. They were not friends. They were not enemies. They were something stranger, twin echoes of violence shaped by necessity. Kale departed with his remnant blades, swearing to carve rebellion with steel. The phantom watched him go, a shadow fading into larger shadows. Alone again, the phantom became rumor. He slipped into smuggler fleets, toppled assassins in silence, and vanished before gratitude could be spoken. On one world, a governor awoke to find his palace stripped of guards, a crimson petal painted on his throne. On another, a convoy of rebels swore they saw him watching from a rooftop, then turning away, leaving them to their victory. His legend grew, even when his presence did not. Back on Terra, the unified council received only one message, a small glass case containing a single crimson petal. Counselor Mirasail held it in trembling hands. She whispered a prayer not for victory, but for the man who carried humanity's burden in silence. She knew he would never return home. Ghosts cannot live among the living. The sovereign's empire, once unshakable, bled slowly. Systems rebelled, governors faltered, whispers spread that the throne was not eternal. Children played games in the rubble, one pretending to be the sovereign, another the phantom. And always, the phantom won. But legends are not men. The phantom walked alone, his mask ever unbroken, his voice seldom heard. He carried no banner, no crown, no glory, only the burden of shadows and the knowledge that one day, another construct, another scheme, another sovereign would rise. He would face it, not for recognition, but because silence and defiance were the only gifts he had left to give. And you, who listen to this tale across time and stars, understand this truth. The measure of humanity is not in its fleets, nor in its councils, nor even in its victories. It is in the stubborn soul who stands alone against inevitability, armed with nothing but wit, discipline, and a roll of duct tape. We endure not because we are strongest, nor wisest, but because when empires burn and thrones rage, somewhere a human will step into the fire, vanish into the smoke, and leave behind only a legend.